Hello guys, I'm Tom, and today we will see what crawlers are. One of the most unsettling and terrifying creatures in contemporary horror cinema are the crawlers, conceived by Neil Marshall in The Descent and continued in The Descent Part 2. These humanoid entities, blind and adapted to complete darkness, inhabit an extensive cave system in the Appalachian Mountains, a place where light and hope seem not to exist. In the first film, a group of women explores these caves to face their own fears and traumas, but they soon discover they are not alone. The crawlers emerge as relentless predators, testing their survival. The sequel picks up the story with a new expedition, searching for one of the survivors, venturing even deeper into the underground labyrinth and unveiling the dark secrets hidden there. That is why in this video I will explain in detail the history and origins of the crawlers. For that, I will give you a summary of their appearance and development in the films The Descent and The Descent Part 2. Then, I will talk about their physical appearance, behavior, and personality, as well as their incredible abilities and the few weaknesses known of these terrifying creatures. The story of The Descent delves into this underground nightmare through a group of women, explorers, climbers, and thrill-seekers, who seek to escape their personal demons by confronting an even worse one. What begins as an extreme adventure quickly turns into a desperate struggle to survive, lost in an unknown cave system, with no means to communicate with the outside world, and trapped in an environment where darkness consumes everything. These women discover they are not alone. Something else dwells in the depths, something that watches them, something that hunts. The introduction of the crawlers on screen is a masterclass in building fear. Neil Marshall does not throw them immediately at the viewer. Instead, he lets the atmosphere work first. The claustrophobia, the silence, the disorientation, everything builds up until, finally, the revelation emerges. Humanoid creatures, pale-skinned like chalk, with atrophied eyes and mouths full of razor-sharp teeth. They are fast, agile, precise. They climb vertical walls like insects, slip through impossible cracks, and leap on their prey with a blood-chilling ferocity. But beyond their already terrifying physical appearance, the crawlers provoke a visceral reaction because they represent something deeper. In their movements, there is organization. In their attacks, strategy. They are not wild beings acting at random. They are part of a closed, functional ecosystem, possibly with internal hierarchies, where each member fulfills a specific role. Males, females, and even offspring have been observed, suggesting reproduction, nurturing, and therefore society. Their guttural sounds, growls, and shrieks reveal a primitive, rudimentary language, but developed enough to coordinate group movements and alert each other to danger or the presence of food. Their physiology is also perfectly aligned with their habitat. They do not have functional eyes because in total darkness sight is unnecessary. But what they have lost on one side, they have more than made up for on the other. Their hearing is sharp, almost superhuman. They pick up the slightest echo, the faintest vibration. Their sense of smell allows them to track precisely. And although they do not have an echolocation system as complex as bats, they use sounds to calculate distances, locate movements, and anticipate behaviors. Visually, they are a grotesque spectacle. Their almost translucent skin seems to absorb the gloom around them. Veins stand out like dark rivers beneath a pearly surface. Their tense muscles reveal the brutal strength hidden in their long, sharp limbs. And their mouths, always slightly open, seem ready to tear apart rather than to communicate. There is something deeply disturbing about their way of existing. They do not scream to scare. They scream because they communicate. They do not kill out of sadism, but out of instinct. But that instinct, so wildly efficient, is even more terrifying. One of the keys to the impact the crawlers have on the viewer lies in the way they behave as predators. They do not pounce without thinking. They stalk, they wait, they surround, they coordinate, and when they attack, they do so with surgical precision. They strike from different angles, cut off escape routes, sow panic before delivering the final blow. They are predators meticulously sculpted by evolution to become near-perfect hunting machines. Designed for absolute stealth, the crawlers move through the depths with a silent, terrifying grace, like living shadows blending with the darkness around them. They can squeeze through narrow cracks, crawl through impossible passages, and camouflage themselves among damp rocks without making the slightest sound. Their approach to prey is so subtle that they could be breathing just inches from you, hidden in the blackness, and you would never realize it until it's far too late. Their hunting method is not based on an initial burst of brute force, but on patience and precision. These beings stalk their victim for long periods, studying their movements from the shadows, waiting with an almost superhuman calm for the exact moment to strike. And when they do, they attack with a sudden, savage ferocity. The assault is so fast and brutal that it leaves barely any chance to react. It is a perfectly executed ambush, where violence erupts like lightning, destroying any possibility of defense or escape. But the crawler's dominance is not limited to the dry, rocky terrain of the caves. These creatures have conquered not only the subterranean land, but also its aquatic domains. They are perfectly adapted to survive in extreme conditions, including flooded sections, dark wells, underground lakes, and passages covered in stagnant water that are part of their natural environment. Their lean, sinewy bodies glide through the water with astonishing fluidity. They swim with predatory efficiency, as if every stroke were instinctive, as if every current had been known to them since birth. Though they lack all vision, their spatial awareness is so acute that they move with chilling confidence through these underwater labyrinths. It is as if the collective memory of their species were etched into every muscle, every bone. This almost organic familiarity with their habitat suggests that the crawlers have inhabited these depths for countless generations. Over time, their bodies have been refined to the point of becoming an inseparable part of their surroundings, like a living extension of the cave itself. Contrary to what one might expect from wild creatures, their behavior is neither impulsive nor disorganized. They do not attack at the first opportunity or plunge into chaos without apparent logic. Their hunting style is methodical. They use planned ambushes, retreat strategically when the terrain turns against them, and return to the fight with renewed intensity. They take advantage of every element in their environment: the darkness, the echoes, the narrow tunnels. They know how to turn every corner of the cave into a lethal trap. Most interestingly, they show no signs of advanced intelligence as we understand it. They do not build, they do not use tools, they do not speak. Everything they achieve is done with their own bodies, honed by ruthless evolution. But that does not make them any less effective. Their intelligence seems organic, instinctive, brutal. Their strength lies in their environment, their adaptation, their unity as a group. Although they are not physically indestructible, their skin is strangely thin and vulnerable. Their behavior more than makes up for that fragility. Throughout the descent, we see humans manage to wound them using improvised objects: an ice axe, a sharpened bone, a rock. This reminds us that their lethality does not come from overwhelming physical resilience, but from a perfect combination of environment, strategy, and brutality. One of the most debated topics among fans of the saga concerns the limits of their territory. Could the crawlers leave the depths? Could they hunt on the surface, under daylight? In The Descent Part 2, one particular scene fueled this speculation. A large creature appears on the surface, attacks a deer, and drags it back into the cave. The image is powerful, but what does it really mean? For some, it is definitive proof that the crawlers can operate outside their habitat. For others, it is a special case. That creature did not come out on its own, but was led there by a human. In The Descent, one scene suggests this in a disturbing way. A local hunter drugs a police officer and leaves her abandoned in front of the cave entrance. Why would he do this? The most popular theory is that this man maintains a symbiotic relationship with the creatures. He feeds them, offering them prey, animals, or even people, to keep them satisfied and contained within their domain. It would be a kind of silent pact with hell. Keep the demons in their cave in exchange for blood. Throughout both films, the script never explicitly confirms whether the crawlers frequently cross into the outside world. All indications suggest they do not. Their world is the cave, leaving it as something they would only do in exceptional cases, perhaps driven by extreme hunger, direct threat, or human manipulation. This unresolved mystery is one of the elements that keeps the mythology surrounding these creatures alive, generating theories, debates, and chills long after the film ends. Among their most evident weaknesses is total blindness. They have no visual sense whatsoever. However, their hearing more than compensates for this lack. They pick up vibrations in the rock, the echoes of movement, changes in breathing rhythm. They do not possess a sophisticated echolocation system like bats, but their auditory abilities are precise enough to turn every sound into a clue. Nevertheless, this limitation can also work against them. Noise can be their enemy if used strategically. Some characters manage to distract them, confuse them, or set auditory traps that allow them to escape, hide, or even launch a surprise attack. A fascinating detail that many are unaware of is that within the film's universe, these beings are never given an actual name. There is no scene where someone says, "The crawlers are here." In fact, they are vaguely referred to as things, or are simply left unnamed. The term crawlers comes from behind the scenes, from the internal language used by director Neil Marshall and his team during the project's development. This decision, far from diminishing their identity, heightens their mystery. By not being named, their threat becomes even more abstract, more visceral, more terrifying. The conceptual origin of the crawlers comes directly from Neil Marshall's desire to set a horror story in an oppressive, enclosed environment like a deep cave. From this decision came the question, what kind of creature could have evolved in such a place? He did not want just any monster. He wanted something plausible, something human, but deformed by time and isolation. Thus, these beings emerged, not as supernatural entities, but as biological possibilities, a dark reflection of what humanity might have become under different circumstances. And to make them even more disturbing, it was decided to give them a social structure. We see males, females, and young. This suggests reproduction, hierarchies, a life in a primitive but functional community. Marshall insisted he did not want a lone monster without context. He wanted a colony, a species, a society. And in the context of horror cinema, this was a brilliant and uncommon choice. Because instead of facing a singular enemy, the protagonists face an entire ecosystem that responds with collective ferocity. Finally, one of the most brilliant resources during filming was keeping the crawlers' design hidden from the female cast until the exact moment of shooting their first contact scenes. This was not a simple production trick. It was a strategy intended to provoke authentic reactions of fear, surprise, and unease. Many of the actresses later confessed that the crawlers' appearance was even more disturbing in person than they had imagined. For some, they looked like deformed vampires. For others, like decomposed humans, creatures that were once something familiar, but are no longer. That blend of the known and the monstrous is perhaps what makes them so unforgettable.